Hello and welcome to another video where in this session we'll be examining the use of the journal to correct errors when involving a suspense account. This is part 2 to understanding how to use the journal to correct errors, and if you haven't seen part 1 I would highly recommend checking out that video to get the basics first. A suspense account is created to balance the trial balance when there has been an error when entering in transactions to the system. Anytime there is an imbalance in the system, i.e. when the debits and credits do not match up, the software will automatically create a suspense account in order to make the accounts balance. What errors would cause an imbalance? Well, single entry transactions, recording 2 debits or 2 credits for a transaction, recording different amounts for the debit and credit entries, errors in transferring balances to the trial balance, or the omission of a general ledger account in the trial balance. We'll be using the same process we used within part 1 of this video, but as a little recap, let's just bring up the process. Step 1, draw up the T accounts for the transactions as it should have been entered into the accounts. Step 2, draw up the T accounts for the transaction and enter in what has actually happened. Step 3, calculate the entries required to get from what has happened to what should have happened. Let's take a look at an example to put this into practice. Jo was reviewing the monthly accounts when she came across a transaction for insurance that had been posted to the insurance account, but no other entry had been made. The posting was for £1,700. Step 1 then, what should have happened? The entries to record this transaction should have been a debit within the insurance and a credit within the bank. Insurance being an expense, therefore a debit, and as it's money being paid out of the bank, it would have been entered in on the credit side. Step 2, now let's have a look at what has actually happened. So the entry made to the insurance account is correct, but as there was no credit entry made within the accounts, the system would have automatically created a suspense account in order to make the accounts balance. As seen on screen, this would result in a suspense account with a £1,700 credit balance. Step 3 then, going from what has happened to what should have happened. We can see on screen how the accounts look at present. To correct the error, we would debit the suspense account, reducing the balance to 0, and credit the bank account as it should have been in the first place. By doing this, you've successfully cleared the suspense account and entered the transaction into the bank account to record the insurance expense. How would this look in journal format then? The account names will generally run down the left hand side and then the entries which you'd like to make to them on the right of them. In this example, our account names will be the suspense account and the bank account. We want to debit the suspense for £1,700 and credit the bank for £1,700. Remember, when completing a journal, the debits and credits must equal under the rules of double entry. Lastly, we just need to add in the detail of what the journal is for, so that if we come back to look at the transaction or somebody else in the team is looking at the entry, they know what it was for. We'll now move on to a second example to cover a slightly different scenario. Example 2. Tamsin was reviewing the monthly accounts when he came across a transaction for rental income where the double entry didn't match up. The rental income should have been entered in as £12,400. This has been entered correctly within the bank but has been entered in as £14,200 within the rental income account. Step 1 then. Enter what should have happened. The rental income should have been entered in as a credit for £12,400 to the rental income account and a debit to the bank account. Step 2. What actually happened? The bank entry has been entered in correctly to the debit side of the account and for the correct amount. The rental income has been correctly entered in on the credit side of the account, but for the wrong amount. This has been entered in as £14,200 rather than £12,400. As the credit entries that have been entered in the accounts are higher than the debit entries, a suspense account would automatically be created to make the accounts balance. As the credit entries are higher, the suspense will be open with a debit balance of £1,800. The £1,800 being the difference between the debit and the credit entries. Step 3, going from what has happened to what should have happened. To make the correction, the first step would be to remove the incorrect entry from the rental income account. To do this, debit the rental income for £14,200, bringing the balance down to zero. Next is to enter the transaction into the rental income account as it should have been in the first place, which is to credit the account for £12,400. The last step is to clear the suspense account by crediting the account for the balance of £1,800. This brings the suspense account balance to zero. By doing this, we have successfully removed the incorrect entry, cleared the suspense account, and entered the correct amount into the rental income account. So how would this look as a journal? Firstly, debit the rental income account for £14,200 to remove the incorrect entry. Then enter the correct amount within the rental income account of £12,400. Finally, remove the amount from the suspense account by crediting the account for £1,800. Remember to always add in the details to the journal to explain what's happened. And that wraps up part 2 of this journals and corrections, including a suspense account tutorial. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more AAT content. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.